We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Recovery Road, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leaha Mattinson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm host Leaha Mattinson, and thank you to every one of you for tuning in from wherever it is that you are on this beautiful planet. Now, if you're tuning in via podcast, please be sure to come to the masteryourlife.ca website, not .com.ca, masteryourlife.ca website, so you can watch the video version of this podcast, because I'd love for you to see my handsome returning guest, Dr. David Hardy. Dr. Dave, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thanks. And I also want you to all see that I'm rocking some new earrings today. So all these really first world important things that you can't see if you're just listening. So come on over and check out the website, because we have lots of really great resources there for wellness. So don't miss out on coming and checking that out. So Dr. Dave, we're going to talk today about memory. And what got us talking about this subject was last week we were talking about chaos and conflict and recovering from exertion, and just how many people are actually struggling with trauma, stress. And now it's almost like this emergency state of things all the time, which causes our brain to really shut down. But I don't know that people actually get how significant this is, because when you said that the last episode, I tried to think back to when my children were about 10 and 11 years old, and I got some really impactful news. And I have an absolute heck of a time trying to remember anything from that time about them for about 4 years post that. Wow. Yeah, it's a really, really serious thing. So my mom...
What was going on in that 4 years?
When I turned 40, I was diagnosed with Huntington's, or given the positive genetic status for it. Right. I was going through a really horrible divorce. And and my sister at the same time got her status, which was gene negative. And so there was just all this weird family dynamics going on. So not a lot of help and support. And so it's just how I coped, because I went to the gym, which was I thought good and noble, but it's kind of like I was checked out from some of my other life, because I was really in survival mode now that I look back at it. But it was a really, really lots of not good things going on. So thanks for asking. And I don't think, sadly, that it's abnormal, because so many people are getting just devastating news, things that are offside in their life. The one upside, I said, is it certainly did prepare me for the last couple of years, because I was used to the emergency trauma, stress, like high blaring data. So but what I would really love is to have those. I would love to have those memories. Because my mom had a photo. I don't know if you've ever seen those photo books that are kind of the automatic ones that play from a computer. So she had one of those. Yeah, she had one of those up on her desk, and I looked over, and it was that time period. And my daughter and son were flashing on the screen, and I just burst into tears because I couldn't remember any of it. And I felt so guilty and bad just about actually not being present at that time. So it's very, very hard. So it's like what this show is really about, Master Your Life, Recovery Road, really are about recognizing these things in myself and then going, okay, like, how do I heal that, and then I can't be the only one. So how do I actually take all the tools that I have and help people to understand how they can actually have a better experience with those tools, or with that insight and tools, so they don't have to go through losing years of memory. And so that's kind of where you come in, because you're the functional neurologist, neurology specialist, but you also have a family story of dealing with memory loss. Do you want to share what that's about?
Right. Yeah. One of the reasons I'm so interested in basically longevity and everything else of is of course, my history of concussions, and of course how I got better and during my training. But also was that when I was in elementary school, one of my grandmas had Alzheimer's. So we saw the degeneration happen. And of course, you're always, at that age, you remember the memories of your grandmother and all these really great times you had. And then you also start to remember how she forgot basically your name or who you were, the confusion, the bouts of frustration and rage that they had, and then of course when they actually do pass, and just still looking down at a dead body for the first time was really, really something back then for me. And the story was that the care home that she was at gave a call to my parents and said that they thought she was about to pass. And of course, then it was the quick rush from Red Deer to Calgary to get there and hopefully be there in the last moments. And we got there a fraction late, and they ushered us into this room, and she had already gone. And you saw the dead body for the first time, and it wasn't the pretty image that you see at a funeral home. It was really those last moments of despair in somebody who was suffering for a long period of time. And
so how do you think that impacted you? I mean, it would have impacted your parents. Like, do you have memories of like noticing them being impacted in some ways that impacted you, or what are your memories of that?
Right. The biggest thing, of course, was then looking down at my grandma, and kind of that it's almost like a silent scream that her body was in. And of course, then you see your family members tearing up and crying. And then at the funeral home, when there was the display, there was my aunt and uncle crying, and my dad walks in and then walks out of the room. And he just had to see her in a better form than before. And that was always kind of an interesting moment that occurred there. So
and how old were you?
Kind of how people respond differently to death too was something that was brought up at that time for me. So
how old were you?
I would have been mid or upper elementary school at that point in time, I believe.
Okay, so like 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And earlier too, like there are those moments where you crack up, and you have to laugh as well. Like I remember we took our new dog into the nursing home, and it's this black dog, and this is back in the days where there's those big black ashtrays, those ones, and
huge,
right? Yeah, and so the dog's right beside my grandmother, and so is that big garbage bin type ashtray, and she starts petting the ashtray instead of the dog. And then of course I bring that up, and I'm like, that's not the dog there, Grandma. And then she starts to pet my head.
That's not the dog either, Grandma. Oh man, I love it.
Right. And then there's the times she'd become frustrated that she's trying to change the TV channel with the phone. Like, all sorts of definitely bizarre and weird moments that happen when your brain just starts shutting down. And then of course now, like you see the ladies and some men that are in their late 80s, 90s that are still sharp. And of course, you're always like, well, that's how I want to be when I'm at those later stages, is to still have my mind, still have my memories of things, and hopefully it's just the body that shuts down at that point in time, and less so with the mind shutting down. But of course, they both kind of go at the same time in most cases. So.
Yes, the way you go into it is the way you come out of it. I had So from your knowing your grandma's, let's call it epigenetics, so the environment that she was born into and raised in, and how she lived her lifestyle, is there anything that you would see that if you were coaching her now, 30 some years later, is there any advice that you would give to grandma or suggestions?
Right. Well, yeah, there was some family history of the others that had issues. But yeah, she was a lady who liked to have a good time. So she smoked, and she liked her wine and everything else. So, and then of course there was always some sort of snack that she'd have beside her. So there were all those lifestyle things that add up to, and of course cause the brain to deteriorate. And yeah, as a little kid, we always hated the smoking, and would always ask her to stop. And then of course, well, one day she just forgot how to. And so.
Thanks, Grandma.
Right. Yeah. All the wrong reasons to quit.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. But it's amazing, because so many people now, I think that because there's pressure on the people who actually have to caregive people with Alzheimer's or other brain diseases, that there actually is a pressure now to try to figure it out. Prior, I think that there wasn't a lot of pressure on families or individuals to actually take care of people with Alzheimer's. So really, as long as you put grandma in or grandpa in a home and you didn't go visit too much, then you didn't actually have to expose yourself to what was going on. And so that was culturally what's happened, with the vast majority of people. So now in the US, Canada, any developed country, the UK, the numbers of people with Alzheimer's, which is caused by lifestyle. Yeah, which is caused by lifestyle, is like diabetes, is staggering. And it's not just the number of people, it's the impact on the caregivers and the impact on their family, because you don't have time to take care of your own children if you're taking care of, or your spouse, if you're taking care of somebody with a very advanced dementia, because they're just like dealing with a little child. Like, can you speak to that a bit? Maybe, and it's not intentional.
Right.
So it's not like they wake up in the morning and go, wow, I wonder how I can make somebody's life miserable and hard today. Because that's not how it is. But we've worked our way into this, and now we've got to figure out how to work our way out. Yes.
Yeah, and there's going to be different phases too as you go through dementia and Alzheimer's. Is that, yeah, at first it's just forgetting things constantly, and then as it progresses too, they're most likely going to hit a stage where there is a lot of frustration and rage and different emotionality that comes out, as of course you start to lose these higher functions of the brain that keep you calm. And that, I think, is probably the most kind of heart-wrenching thing about the disease is that stage. And then of course there's some people that kind of just go through a happy demented phase, and it's kind of depends just what part of the brain is starting to deteriorate. But yeah, I would imagine that for that person going through it, the most horrible thing is, of course, knowing that all of this is starting to go on you, and losing it. And, that's one of the reasons that yeah, we want to do everything possible to hopefully be as sharp as we can be later in life.
Yeah. It is absolutely horrible. And because that's part of this Huntington's disease is one of the things that,
Right.
so 10 years ago, or no more than that now, but when my children were 10 and 11 and I had received this diagnosis or this status, quote unquote, I want to do anything that I can to actually not be a stark raving lunatic and not be, paranoid schizophrenic, or especially embarrassing to my children. And because I didn't want them to have that experience, then that was my kind of stake in the ground about how I was going to live my life. Because really that was my focus. And I'm not saying that was a good thing. It was my focus at the time. And then about 8 years later, when I was executive coaching for this organization at the C level, like the owner management level. And I got invited to a red carpet event in Calgary. And I, was gala dressed to the nines and whatever, and the heels and blah, blah. And I had a glass. Yeah. New earrings for that one too. You guessed it, Dr. Dave. So I was with this whole group of, the CEO, owners, VPs, senior VPs. And we all had a glass of wine. And then we sat down at the table and had another glass of wine brought to the table. And I don't remember a single other thing after that. And until the next morning when my phone was ringing, and it was the business manager for this company that I worked for calling to see if I was all right. And I had a complete blackout. And so what I immediately thought is, oh my God, I've got this thing. This thing has shown up and now it's onset. And holy shit, my entire life is screwed. So it's like I was asking, what did I do? Like, who got me home? Like how, whatever. So he gave me some of the details. But the only reason I did not lose and I actually had to leave that job, but the only reason I actually didn't get fired on the spot is because I was so well respected by the ownership. I've been working with them for about 2 years, and they all loved me and respected me. And it was just so weird to see me, whatever the behavior was, which I don't want to go into, but I thought, holy shit, this is what it is. It's the freaking onset of this thing. So I didn't tell anybody. I just, I went to work for however, like I just would go to work, and then I worked myself out of work because I couldn't stay there. I had this whole incident had happened around all the VPs and SVPs. So their trust just went from, high trust to nothing. And you can't work as an executive coach if you have no trust. So, so that's a lot of it impacted my income and impacted my where I lived, my choices of houses, just how my family viewed me. And I didn't want to tell anybody about it. So I kind of surfed along. And then I had a friend who was a retired RCMP officer call me one day and say, hey, how you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while. So I told him about it. And he said, oh, come on, Mattinson. Like, I've known you for however long. That's not true. You were probably drugged. You were drugged. Right. Because why wouldn't that have gone through your mind that you were drugged? Because I said, well, I don't know. I just automatically thought it was this other thing. And holy shit, it was just like I've been, like it was very, very horrible. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. Yeah, it's very, very. So I just went, all right, pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And what are you going to do? Because you can't just lay down. You got to just get up and keep working. And obviously you're not going to be able to do that. And you have to figure out if you're sick, Leaha. So how are you going to do that also, cleaning up. And I was living a pretty clean lifestyle at that time. So like I say, those 1 or 2 glasses of wine would have been the only 2 glasses of wine I'd had in, probably months. And so exit all the wine and all of there was probably not too much else that I could have done, but things were stable. So then I could accept this idea that I was drugged. But my first thought was, holy man, this thing is coming. Holy shit, it's here. It's arrived.
It's amazing how the mind can always go down the worst path possible too.
Yeah. And regardless of whether it was the Huntington's or it was the drugging, I lost, a 6-figure job.
A lot.
I did. Yeah, I did. And respect and network, so I had this whole network of people that would help me at the drop of a hat. That went from lots and lots of people to like 2.
So how did you rebuild that?
How did I rebuild it?
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Well, I think I had just started the radio show at that time. So that was, about 7 years ago. And I'd been taking actually a course on spiritual direction from Carolyn Mace called Sacred Contracts. So I was doing all this, kind of divination work or whatever behind the scenes, learning about archetypes. So I'd really thrown myself into that. And then I got a phone call from Voice America about doing a radio show. And, I just thought, okay, this is my God telling me do this. So I did it. And then I ended up on UK Health Radio for, airing the podcast as well. So it just kind of grew from there. But it was honestly baby steps. And I had support from my parents. So if I hadn't had support from my family, I'd have really been in trouble. But I had support of my family, which was really good. Yeah. So that was good. So everyone, yes, you need to have support of your family, and also the honest assessment of myself as being sane.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I went and saw the neurologist.
How has this memory changed throughout the years though? Like, I think that's a very important point to go through, because memories change. They don't stay the same thing. We don't always feel the same emotion behind it. So with this horrible traumatic experience you had, how have things kind of changed with that memory?
Well, because I got new information and I accepted it as the truth, then I went, you're whole. And I think when you're going through something where you feel like you're not, or that you're going to be so far out of normal, out of normal, that you need to figure out ways to actually be normalized. And that was my sort of rewriting that story around, no, you were normal and you were drugged. And there was all this really terrible stuff that happened. And a couple of things that I'm actually not even mentioning that were happening in the family. And so that I can't talk about, but we're actually more horrible than that. And more horrible that I just can't talk about. But so some people also I know are not put on this earth to just skate through it.
Right. Yeah.
Some are and some are not. And I am in the category of not. So it's just like, but you've got to keep figuring out how to get up and keep going. Right. So, and with dignity and with, really brushing yourself off and, putting your shoulders back. And because we were raised in Alberta, it's like, put your skates on and lace your skates up and get back on the ice and keep skating or whatever. I never played hockey, for the record, but I did play other things. So sports helped me a lot too through that time, I think, because so Qigong helped me a lot. I was going to the gym, so that whole being okay in my physical body and keeping my physical body strong and not allowing kind of that also to go downhill, because it's the grappling, like you're grappling with yourself to get up every day and also to put a happy face on, because I wasn't single. I was with my children. Like they were children when this was going on, and they were looking to me and counting on me to be sane and stable and productive. Right. Yeah. So when your entire community goes poof, it's like all the friends that you used to kind of hang out with or people you used to talk to, they go, hey, mom, like where's so-and-so? Go, well, and so really impactful things also for my children were that because I've been single for a really long time, so they don't actually have, like I was married to their father, but he hasn't been in the picture since they were very, very little, like 2 and 6 months. Right. So he vanished. Poof. So why that matters is when you're trying to get your kids to find their place in the world, the father's role is often helping them to get employment, networked, building those things. And there was none of that there. So when I was working at these executive coaching jobs, all of the guys were helpful. They were all really helpful. And the women too, right? It's like, oh, for sure, we can help with this and we can help with that. Fixing my car tires. Like I got stranded on the side of the road. I'd have whoever show up and pick my vehicle up and fix things for me and offer employment for my children. Like that was some part and parcel of that. And that all went away. So even those opportunities went away. Yeah. So it was very, very, just made it really, really hard for me. So, and for them, so it doesn't just affect the person who's going through the thing, it affects your children and subsequently your grandchildren too. So yeah. So there's always this kind of catching up, but that's the way that it is. Difficulty happens, stuff happens. And Yeah. I wake up every day and say, I'm sure grateful that I have my physical health, that my body's in good shape, and that I can get out and, mow the grass and weed the whatever and fix trailers and ride my bike and love up my grandkids.
I think that's the biggest lesson too, that we can take away from these horrible situations, is that really the only thing we can control at the end of it is ourselves.
Yes,
And
100%.
that's a hard pill to swallow, because of course we're so focused on everything happening around us.
Mm-hmm.
But really the biggest challenge in all of these events is, how do we keep ourselves as healthy as possible, and get through to the other side? And that's kind of the only thing we do have that control over, is once again the body and mind we're given.
Yeah. And I think the courage to ask for help has been a big problem and a barrier. So we have this, and I know I'm not the only one. We've talked about this in other, episodes, that people are afraid to tell other people what's going on. So so when you actually start saying,
a few journeys are meant to be taken alone, right?
Yeah. Yes.
There's always that saying out there when people are kind of in those alone times as well. And once again, if that's the case, it still comes down to yourself and your body.
That's right. Yeah. The dark night of the soul, is every human being has one, and some people have more than that. So that's just the way it is. And the memory piece, though, being so important to staying awake and being able to not repeat the patterns of things that, if they're at all avoidable, like to not keep repeating patterns. So I think that that's part of what we're seeing with dementias, Alzheimer's, like all the neurological problems, is that the stuff that creates them typically are things that we can have some influence over, and we choose not to do that, so.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the brain's always going to take the most efficient route, even when it's not a good one. So
brain.
That's why I'm such a big fan of the functional neurology world, is looking at ways to physically rewire the brain and get these pathways working differently, and get the feeling of, once again, your own self better before doing the work on the counseling or emotional side of things. And I always kind of refer back to, you can think about something good all the time, but it's all going to always go back to how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And these patterns that stick too, and these memories, developing these negative memories over and over again too, it's basically entrenched feeling. And if we go back to emotions, the easy word is feelings, and then you look at, well, okay, what's the root word of feelings? Feel. And then we need to think about, okay, well, feel. Well, how do I change the things that come in or that are present in my body that make me feel? And then you're able to break some of these patterns, and that becomes really exciting. And not just that, it makes your memories richer. Like, I know when I'm in a better mood and I feel good, then the memories that I start to process and think about are the good ones. And that's kind of the amazing feeling, is that, if you're in this state where things are functioning and flowing good within yourself, then the memories that you retrieve and that you're processing are the good ones as well. But if you're sluggish, tired, overwhelmed, the memories that you're going to process or think about or dwell on are going to be the negative ones. And you can talk about it all you want, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, once again, the state that you're in. And for a lot of people, though, that initiation and change to flip that switch might be talking and getting things done that way. In another person, though, it might be exercise. In another person, it might be meditation. And all sorts of different combinations, of course, around it. But the key is to get that initial one and then build on it and change how that person's state is at that point in time. So the memories that they retrieve are better. And then the memories they start to produce become better and richer and more exciting. Because at the end of the day, too, when we're all by ourselves and we're just sitting there thinking and replaying our lives, it's once again our memories. And so much of that is once again what we experience. And we do have that control over what we experience. Yeah, a little walk in nature with your grandchild is bliss. And that's something you can do more of instead of, once again, dwelling on something from the past that doesn't serve you anymore.
Yeah, very important. Key, then they're key things at every stage of life, every age and stage of life. One of the getting this diagnosis thing was really important because it also made me very conscious about how positive I am. And my mom would say, "Why are you so positive about everything? It's actually annoying," right? It's like, so it's like the girls at the bank say, they're annoyed by me. So they'll say, the girls at the bank, "Oh, it's Monday, blah, blah." And I said, every day in my world is Friday. They're like, "What a great way to look at things." And I'm like, yes, yeah. But lots of people don't like that. And I'm suggesting what worked for me and what works for me. And so that there is, even in the face of lots of really crappy things, I feel like I have a responsibility to myself to be happy, because I feel so much better when I'm happy. So the smile on your face, even if it's, put it on your face and do a little belly laugh or whatever to get me into that thing, because everybody is affected by how you carry yourself in the world. The gals at the bank, when I walk in, I go, "Hey, good morning," every one of them. So there's like 4 tellers. This is like, they all turn at the same time. "Hey, Leah, how you doing?" I was like, "Great." So it's just fun, but there you can tell that almost everybody else they encounter during the day must be kind of head down, shoulders in, not feeling very good. And like, if you can control how much energy that's good that you're putting into the world, then that comes back to you in like this feedback loop also. So that's
people mirror each other. And that's too why, sometimes if somebody's overly happy and you're not feeling that way, that it's annoying to be around them, is you mirror each other's energy and feed off.
And who usually wins on that one? The negative or the positive?
Which one? The negative, right?
Usually the negative.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, it's shocking, right? When you go, "Oh, I'll just shine my sunny sunshine self in here," and people go, the Borg. You're going down, Princess Sunshine. Yes.
And that's another reason why you have to focus on how you feel, because if you're ever going to overcome anyone else's emotions, then you've got to be set in the emotion that you want. And that becomes, that battle to keep it.
Yeah. And so what about for you? What have you found along the span of time that works for you? Like personally, have you had any time when you've noticed that your memory's been sloppy or lost, and then the things that you did to kind of recover it?
Oh, definitely. I was going through that, the professional gauntlet there for a while, and bouncing all over the continent and moving myself in my car across time spans of days, basically. And of course the grieving process of leaving these places that you started to develop a life in. And so you're going through this washing machine of the filth that's professional life, and trying to develop yourself and to build something. And it's not pretty. There's all sorts of stats on professional suicide and burnout rates and everything else. And I don't know that I don't like to use the term higher up, but the bigger the title, the the harder the the climb and the falls to get there. And yeah, I was noticing that basically one of the things I really loved was that earlier in life, I traveled all around the world and experienced so many great things and really had a blast. And I'd always get these flashbacks of memories of those days. And memories are strange. They hit you in the oddest places and oddest times. Mm-hmm. But yeah, basically you get this overwhelming feeling of that great time returning. And it might just be a little flash or something. And I noticed I wasn't getting any of these anymore. And the thing that was really, really kind of frustrating to me too was that I didn't feel like I was laying down good memories at that point in time. Yeah. And even along kind of the journeys back and forth and across the continent, I would stop in good places along the way and check out some of the sites and go for a hike or something, or hit one of the lakes or beaches. But yeah, those memories too, because I wasn't in a good state, didn't really stick as being this excellent, great part of my my existence. Yes. And yeah, it wasn't until later when I started to once again kind of go through more of the healing process and becoming a little more stable that I started to notice these memories starting to come back, and from like 10, 20 years ago. And they would just kind of hit me in the strangest places. But yeah, my brain was firing at a frequency that matched close to the frequency of something from the past. And then of course you get that return of emotion, that heightened state and everything else that really makes life worthwhile. And that to me was kind of the clinching factor behind everything I'm doing, is that yeah, your memories depend on the state of mind and how your brain is working at this present moment in time. And even if you have all these old memories, if your brain starts to dull, your memories are going to dull as well. And even if you know of the memory, the feeling of a memory is different. So
a couple of things you said there that I want to pick up on, that you didn't you didn't realize something, the quality, or you didn't like the quality of the memories you were laying down. Mm-hmm. I really love that. I just want everyone to kind of savor that idea for a minute, because oftentimes things are going so quickly that we're not even conscious at all about the memories that we're laying down. And so when we look back, we go, holy man, what was I doing? What was I doing? And then there's all of that where people go, I don't feel embarrassed about anything, or, I wish I have no regrets. That is one of my favorite, right, yeah. Like, oh my God, who are you? Like, look at your life, man. Look at it. And you should not have regrets, but to go, man, it's like I was learning some things there and I should have learned them faster. I wish, now I go, oh, I wish I would have learned that a little faster.
Right. Yeah. Like one of like you talk about embarrassment, and now I laugh my ass off on this one. Yeah. But yeah, driving back, I had the bike on the roof, of course, the bike rack, and I've driven like a couple days already, and I'm really tired, and I'm going to whatever hotel I'm going to, and I've always seen those videos of people not clearing things in the parking deck. And I completely forgot that I had the bike on the roof. And I drive through it, I smash it. And of course, the roof rack's all bent out of shape. There's a dent in the roof and the car door.
Did it stay on the roof? Did it actually stay on the roof? Oh my God.
No, it came flying off. Yeah. And of course, then the roof rack's busted for the next day. But yeah, I just pictured myself being on like some YouTube channel
Worst fails. Right. Yeah, worst fails.
Yeah, of course, I'm cussing at it and everything else, and I'm just dead
funny.
tired to the world. And
oh yeah, and I hope to God nobody saw that.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny! Holy moly! All right, so you have a new bike now, though, right, Dave? Oh, that is so funny. Oh my gosh. Oh. And I'm sure everyone can relate to a story or two in their lives that have been, because you know what? You've lived an adventurous life. So
absolutely, yeah.
I think if you're sitting in front of your TV and you're doing absolutely nothing, sure, you don't have any sort of embarrassing things because you played it safe. But when you're really out there in the world, adventuring, I think it's important for us to have the skill of laughing about things, because our kids need to laugh at stuff, and to not be so serious when they do things that are embarrassing, and the grandchildren too, because it's really early on that embarrassment kind of turns on in the brain, like, so helping kids to navigate through that so that they're not paralyzed. How did you actually get the courage up to just actually carry on? Like, what did you do? How did you clean yourself up and just get going? Because you didn't just sit there with your mangled thing on the side. Because you're here today. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're in survival mode. You're just chugging through things, and yeah, it's absolutely tough at those moments in time. And of course, I think the things that did help me was I continued to try to do things that would change my state a little bit. So whether it was hiking or biking or any of the things that bring me joy, I tried to integrate those and get those as often as possible. And like, even when I was going through kind of the first professional crapshoot, the great thing was I had the trails right there. So yeah, I'm huffing and I'm steamed and whatever else, but yeah, I'd be doing that through a walk on a nice nature path, and of course things changed a little bit for me. Mm-hmm. And was I still going through a lot of shit and still felt like crap? Absolutely. But yeah, once again, it was something that decreased that feeling and state a little bit, that made things bearable, I guess, and got me out of my own perseveration on all the things going on.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is, and then you'd step by step recover it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it's the only way to do it. And again, I think we're really fortunate for people who haven't played any team sports or played any sports or even like skipped rope or done anything athletic, and because then you're in your physiology and you have this sensory stuff built. So I guess playing in a playground also kind of can landscape the same stuff, because at least you're getting feedback from some playground equipment. Although I must say that most playgrounds now are so sterile, it's hard to really get the same feedback.
And then a lot of people will go to music or something else, which is great. Yeah. And you need to do more of those. So you sit on the bar stool a little less.
A little less. Exactly. Oh, I had, there's some funny things go through my mind there, but I won't share those. We'll save those for another episode. So let's talk about how, we've got about 4 minutes left, just about how frequency was the other thing that you'd said. It's like the frequency that you were at is what allowed those memories to come to the surface. Yeah. And I think people, it's like just that understanding about frequency is really important. It's like, can you talk a little bit about what frequency is? Like, people are familiar with like microwave, say, frequency, right, or I'm kind of lost. Radio band frequency,
or
exactly. So what is it that you're talking about when you're talking about frequency?
Yeah, like, you can make it esoteric, and just a lot of people really enjoy that. And there's different vibrations on Earth that give you different energy. Or you can get really dorky and sciencey about it, and you can talk about brain waves. So there's different frequency of brain waves. So basically there'll be these slow giant waves called delta, and you get those when you sleep. And then you move up a little bit, so it becomes more energetic, and that's going to be theta, the kind of sleep-wake area. And then you get into that nice middle of the road alpha frequency, sometimes associated with meditation, but basically it's that middle of the road, can shift either direction, low frequency or high frequency. And then you get into your high frequency beta and gamma waves. And then that's going to be more externalization of the outside world, more about alertness and reaction. So quite commonly when we're in that reaction mode, then we're going to be in this very high frequency brainwave. And then of course it also depends what part of the brain is experiencing what wave and what ratio. So you can really start to geek out about that if you're into the neurofeedback world. Or you can take it, once again, into more of that energy style, esoteric and universal approach to things. That, of course, everything's about energy. And then you can go into like different colors mean this, and different animals will have this type of energy to them. And the main thing is that put it into a system that, once again, brings some certainty into your world, or and then that feel good sensation, whether it's kind of being that that nerdy dorky side of it, or that lovey hippie type thing. It doesn't matter. It's
the groovy
it's
hippie
all
type
explaining a phenomenon that's happening around us.
Yeah, love it. So important. So a couple of tools that people can find for that sort of frequency management are on the masteryourlife.ca website. You can come and check out Genius Biofeedback, which is cool. And there's like a free trial of that. We also have behind me, if you're actually watching on the video version of the show, iTerracare, physiotherapy healing devices. So you can check those out. There's lots of information there, and they help you to improve the frequency of your cells. So what couldn't be more funky than that? Right? Right. So we're out of time for this episode, Dr. Dave. Thank you so much for being my guest once again, and hope everyone has a wonderful week. We invite you to love yourselves, love each other, mind your minds. That's all for us. Bye for now.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.